I could tell you that I'm the #1 trader on Binance. And
he does. He said this before, so
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's like, and you could go look it up, and how are you going to know that account belongs to me? But the fact that this is like ENS tied to my actual Farcast account, like there is really something there. It's cool.
It's to the point where people will actually trade with their named account, like versus their alts here, because there is social capital to be earned.
Internet Explorers.
Oh baby, we're back. Episode 56. That's where we're at. 56. Internet Explorers. We hang out every Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We dive into what the F is actually happening in the consumer crypto space. This week's a special one because I felt very unplugged for 4 days, and I've just been dropped back into the deep end. Okay, maybe kind of unplugged because it was definitely punting a few meme coins during that time, but
yeah,
the world didn't go super crazy when we were unplugged, and also kind of also still is going crazy. So good vibes.
Yeah, we had a little partial team offsite this week, which is fun. Yeah, it's amazing how hard it is to like get back into the internet after like a few days of hanging out in real life. Like I was scrambling this morning, man, to get this thing ready.
Yeah, good week though. Good week. We have some very exciting things that we're cooking on. In many ways feels like back to the basics in some ways, but also a big push forward. So I'm excited that we're just going to be able to tease things confidently for the next little while, because there's a big swing coming. Going to take a big swing. How you doing, Peace?
Exceptionally well.
Yeah, you got home okay?
I'm home okay. There's snow in the air. The ground is hard. The seasons are changing. It feels amazing.
How was your Thanksgiving? Because you're the only one we can really talk about
it's
that.
Thanksgiving.
Oh, it was remarkable.
Nice.
I kind of had a pared back thing. I mean, Thanksgiving in America has blown up in prior generations. You know, everyone's doing different things. It's okay to have barbecue. It's okay to have whatever not Thanksgiving food. So I had chicken pot pie and mac and cheese. It's kind of Thanksgiving food. It was good.
Thanksgiving is about the family. It's about the intent, the food. I mean, and food, but
it's actually it's about turkey and sweet potato casserole, baby, and a cranberry sauce if you're lucky.
No, essential cranberry sauce from the can, not this fancy Whole Foods shit. You want it like your sugar,
right.
Really, yeah.
Cranberry sauce is a really easy way to ruin a Thanksgiving meal, in my eyes.
Oh, that's crazy.
If you don't put any cranberry sauce?
Yeah, I hate it. No cranberry sauce.
That's awesome. No. This is interesting.
No cranberry sauce.
Canadian lore. I don't know how you guys.
No, it's not Canadian lore.
I don't know how you found out about the cranberry sauce. Period. But
no, we have Thanksgiving here. Peace. Thanksgiving's already happened. All right, brother. That's and there sure shit is cranberry sauce at Thanksgiving. Josh has just got some.
Not at mine. I mean, there is, but I don't get into it.
Okay, let's not get stuck here, y'all. We got 138 people listening to us talk about cranberry. So maybe that's what they want. But I think what they really want, most likely, is to dive into our topics today. We're going to bring up Wiiju from Interface shortly, which is just excited to get into that. It's some really good writing around tokenomics. There's something in the air. I think people are like, we're looking for the next thing. Meme coins clearly aren't the full story, and so I can bring you some of your writing back, Josh, and then some new stuff coming out. Capital Information RM wrote a post this week that got shared around our group chats very quickly. So excited to dive into that, and a few bunch of other things. But really, the opportunity here is to dive into the recent story of Interface. And I would sort of frame this up as a team we've been working with since our 6th batch, and just have continued to grind, build. This is the batch that was launched right in the middle of the bear market. And to see this team continue to execute, to continue to push forward a vision, to test and try new things, and to come up with the more recent launch, the sort of copy trading that I think is just taken over. It's very exciting to see. So let's bring them up, and we could hear from the horse's mouth about the experience of building through the bear, finding product market fit, and the different world that we live in once that happens.
What's up? Thank you.
What's up? Man, I was just thinking back, so can we bring up his post? Because you've turned how much into $800,000?
Well, it depends when you ask, because now
okay.
It's $600,000.
$600,000. Okay. Yeah, but I sort of just thinking back to the 6 months, 8 months, 10 months ago, and just the conversations that we're having. But I think let's assume that some folks are discovering Interface for the first time right now, and I'm actually very interested to hear how you're describing it right now. So what is Interface, and why should people care?
So Interface is sort of like our attempt to build a social layer directly on top of the chain. So it's sort of like a social network. You can think about it like a Twitter, but instead of having like people writing posts, you're just looking at people transactions. And what really took off is basically people copy trading each other and like doing swaps after seeing like who does what on chain. So that's like basically the primary use case that took off. But essentially, the idea is like, let's go directly to the chain and try to build like a social layer and surface what is happening on this network, and then like let's interact with the primitives themselves directly. And so this is like our sort of attempt at the building, I don't know, we call it interface. That's the idea. It's like make it indistinguishable from Ethereum itself in long term for the most people. That's like a long term vision as well.
Yeah, I think if we like look back, I think it's been over a year since we've been working together, which is wild. And I think if we look back to really what's changed over the year, I think three things really jump out to me. One, obviously the market has recovered. Like there was just back then, like people just weren't doing interesting shit on chain. So this product was much harder to make sense of, just because like the underlying medium that you're building an interface on top of just kind of wasn't interesting. So that's obviously a piece of it. I think you've largely found a hook. And when I see people, tweeting about interface or telling other people about interface, it's like the alpha and the ability to just immediately copy swap immediately that they often reference. So you found a hook. And I think also the third one is, I think you've really just like stepped up as like the face of the product and like an ambassador for this like type of person that you're building for. So I guess maybe just kind of throwing it to you, do you just want to kind of reflect on the journey over the year and like how those three things kind of led you to where you are now?
Just on the last thing, it's not just myself, it's also Anushka.eth, who's like stepped up, I think. So it's like we represent completely different sort of spectrum of thinking about how like what's happening in chain. So we have different interests, etc. So I think that's the shout out to her. And then regarding, we've been doing this for almost 3 years now. So, and actually, if you look at the sort of the original application, it hasn't changed. We just basically iterating and building out the missing blocks that were not in the first place. So for example, like it took us 2 years to ship a token screen. You couldn't press token. You could see people swapping tokens, and then we added like trading in-app swapping. Then we added copy trading. We added PNLs, and these things they kind of stack up. I think compound over time, and then eventually it clicks. What happened a couple of months ago? Since then we had like a sort of crazy, tremendous growth. Regarding shipping in the bear, when we started. It was also and it was May before FTX. No, when was it? Basically before everything collapsed, and then it ultimately collapsed again. So we started. Everyone was doing like NFT projects, portfolio, etc. And we were like, this is gonna die out. We want to focus on something more sustainable. We want to focus on like a general. We started building article discoveries, all different stuff that is happening on chain, because we kind of foresaw that PFP thing was not sustainable, the volumes, etc. And I would say that that's always been our sort of look at it, trying to navigate the sustainability and the crazy market thing. We just never caught anything from before. So like you could think about, people were discovering stuff, but they were not, let's say, transacting with us. And then we were like, all the pieces were not there. But so now they're slowly, gradually clicking, and it kind of makes sense. One thing specifically on copy trade regarding the hook, I'm trying to highlight it all the time, every time I talk about it. It's sort of not like a traditional copy trade when you just copy trading somebody else. It's more like a discovery primitive that builds a social graph of relations between user addresses and contracts. So right now, everyone's basically discovering token CAs, right? So this is basically like a primitive to discover CA on chain. So because the way you see it is like somebody copy traded somebody else, and then you can click who copied who, and then you basically bootstrap your social graph even further, and then you start tracking this wallet. And that's kind of like really quickly you can build your signal and then your alpha around what CAs are trending on chain. But if let's say tomorrow we integrate something like Juicebox or any other like an NFT or article, theoretically your stream, if it was like a tokenized, and then people start watching, and then it will signal to the network that everyone's jumping onto this stream because there is the CA associated with the stream. It would work kind of similar way. So this is the beauty that I think.
Yeah, I think that the bootstrapping the social graph is I think an underappreciated area here, because I think clearly being early is the game that is most valuable in crypto. And I think a lot of the frustration that comes from a lot of the narratives in crypto right now is the sense that some people are early and others aren't. It's like Cabal, it's the VCs, it's et cetera. And so it feels like there's this big barrier that exists. And I think that is true to a degree, but it is also not true to a degree, right? I think that you can make amazing progress in you can create your own Cabal. You can get on the inside. But I think when somebody's starting to join a new social network, the idea of how do you get to meaningful context or follows or whatever the core is quickly is key. And so I think you've hit on here is a very natural way to, just through following your interesting. You can just follow one person for a little while. It doesn't have to be the perfectly right person. You can start to discover a lot of other things really quickly. So I like this 0 to 1 in building your sort of your connections in interface is a lot easier, I think, than maybe people would think just coming into the product.
Also here, that thing that is right now streaming, the trades for the wallet, I think that also helped a lot. It's like you can see like who's in front of you, like how many trades they have been trading. And actually, like if you go back to what's happening on chain, and a lot of things are that people find interesting is financialization of things. So it's like the most interesting thing they look into when they're trying to bootstrap the network, which is like purely financial at this point. Not purely, but 90%.
You can talk a little bit just about how it feels to be building when, you know, it's hard to get somebody in and you're working very hard to convince versus the sort of phase you're in right now where now you're tweeting something about you're growing faster in a day than you would in a month.
Yeah.
Past, like, what's that lived?
Yeah. So I'll say going back to, let's say, you can think about, we stayed around 100 to like 200-300 DAO for like 2 years. It was just like consistent, flat, new people come in, churning. There's like some people sticking around. So it was like iterating over and over and over. But as you pointed out, like if there's nothing to do on the network, it's it's hard. I think, and also people are churning away in a sense that this is consumer application, and when you're obtaining information what is happening on chain, you're competing essentially against TikTok, Twitter, Warpcast for attention for the consumer. It's extremely hard because the amount of cognitive effort you need to put in to open the second app after you woke up, it's tremendous. It's like tremendous. But over a period of time, you start defaulting to the first one that already provides you like 50% of information. If interface provides you like additional 5-10% that you already can find on X, then you're like not opening interface by default over like within a couple of days. So this is like extremely tough to build. I think it's like where you never know like what clicks, etc. So I think we're still early and nothing is proven at this point yet. It feels fucking amazing that like things are clicking and they're like going crazy, but we're very humble. I hope regarding like, I mean, it's nice because we've been doing this for 2.5 years and we believe in this. So I think that's like the primary thing about sort of going through. Same with the coins. If you hold the coin, if you actually believe it, it's much easier to then hold it versus like you're gonna paper hand it if you just jumped in and never actually had a thesis behind holding. Same with building. I think if you're sort of have an sort of at least the thesis that you feel is sort of correct, people will come at you. You guys were like with the calls, you were also like sort of pushing like this is like, but I think it's from the positive standpoint, you're like trying to challenge and so that the idea would crystallize even further. So I think if you weren't like a sort of at that position, a strong believer of what you're building, you would sort of quickly churn. And most of the consumer apps that raised during when we raised, they all sort of died out, majority. I don't know any mobile chats. There are so many different chat apps, etc. NFT portfolios. There's like, it's brutal, the winter. So I don't recommend anyone. But yes,
you are a frustrating builder for me in the best possible ways because, and I think I say that as like a very, 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 very good thing. And it's sort of anchored in a clarity of vision, maybe not clarity, like a deep intuition around the opportunity that you're building towards. And I think you're sort of somebody who, when you see it, you kind of know it. And so I find our relationship with one as being like really trying to convince you of something, you very much taking that on and, you know, putting it through your lens and doing a very good job of saying yes and no to the things that make sense to the vision and intuition you have. And those are my favorite dynamics, right? Because like, what the hell do I know? What does Josh know? If people can just bring their honest, authentic beliefs and thoughts to the table, that's valuable, but it's only valuable insofar as it is useful and you're able to sort of say yes and no to the things that make sense or don't make sense. So yeah, I think we've had the deepest belief that you're going to be building something big. And I agree, it's still very early. But I think we just go to the clarity that goes right back to this idea that Ethereum is the social network. It's where the content is being produced. And, you know, Etherscan is really not a social product. And so like, well, what can we do when we bring a little bit more clarity to it? And I think a lot of teams are running at this from, visual block explorers, etc. But I think social is the right way to think about it.
I can share a couple like sort of insight. I don't know, the way we view the space and how it's going to move. So I think the wallets, they are becoming essentially, they will be moving towards interface, becoming more like interface-like, because you want to spend your users, like spend their time and then discover and connect with their friends and split bills, etc. So all the wallets will be more and more social. I think if you read like Rainbow, etc., I think they're going to move this direction. Then there's places like Warpcaster and Warpcast, the social application, Telegram, the bigger networks like Telegram and X as well. They're all moving in the same direction. And then I think Dexes and other applications like the big players like Coinbase and Sexes and Uniswap, they're all coming as well into this sort of playing field, trying to build this consumer where people are going to hang around and like discover and interact. So it'll be really tough regarding like us succeeding in next half a year. But as these things converges, sorry. But hopefully, like we are building ground up, just like we have iterated, as you said, a lot, and I don't know, we'll see.
I think the starting point matters too. I agree with all of that, and I think you can see that with the success Daylight has had in integrating with a bunch of wallets, and clearly the direction Coinbase is going with their Coinbase wallet. Rainbow, another great example. I always just like to use MetaMask as a mental model here, though. The idea that I would want social stuff within MetaMask is just like crazy. I just want it to transact maybe a little bit better than it is. I think Phantom is the same, and so I think there's Mark Andreessen was just on Joe Rogan, and I listened to it on my flight home, and I think he was talking about social networks and the idea of like the intention or context with who start them out matters quite a bit, right? So like things becoming political, to sort of drive that, and that really you kind of need to start as a general purpose media distribution mechanism, and I think like clearly tokens are a new type of media here, and so I'm less. I think these guys are coming. But I think that the authenticity with which you started this and almost the genericness with which you started it actually matters quite a bit here. And moving from wallet to operating system still feels kind of awkward to me.
I agree.
Well, I think you've also figured out how to have like a real status game to be played with an interface, which a new status game. A new status game. Like that was the thing we talked about, a year ago, right? It was like, okay, cool, I can follow people on interface, but like why do I want that? And I think with copy swap, I think not only have you figured out a real economic reason for that, like if I build a huge following and I trade stuff, other people are going to see it, they're going to copy swap me, which I earn fees from, but also, the thing I traded is growing in attention, which is obviously valuable for me. But also there's this reputation piece that you guys have figured out too by kind of surfacing P&L and like earliness and stuff within the product that I think if you're coming from this wallet starting point is going to be a much harder thing to kind of bootstrap than you guys starting from where you started and already seeing the network effects kind of take hold.
I love how much like just real proof there is in general. It's like I could tell you that I'm the #1 trader on Binance. And
he does. He said this before. So
you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, and you could go look it up, and how are you going to know that account belongs to me? But the fact that this is like ENS tied to my actual Farcast account, like there is really something there. It's cool.
It's to the point where people will actually trade with their named account, like versus their alts here, because there is social capital to be earned.
I have a thought in here, because you start when you do this, like you introduce this whole new dynamic of like gameplays, like how people are going to play games. So one idea we had in mind is that basically by nudging the way we view, so like Ethereum is the mother of all the networks, so it's it's going to replace all the platforms theoretically, all the different like standalone X, Instagram, Meta, all the platforms theoretically. The Ethereum could become this like the mother of the way I call it. So then if you're playing games, why would you sacrifice like your reputation of the mother of all the networks you're building, curating for like a quick shill or quick like rug, versus like having like on the network that is going to be there for quite a while, and then it's basically like sort of shared across the globe and across the whole strata of different like economies, and it's crazy. So that's like the thesis that theoretically people like you start buying token, maybe you'll play a little longer game than just like, I don't know, using Anon to dump on your Twitter followers that you just shielded them to, because that's our hope. So on the publics, because obviously there needs to be a privacy preserving sort of aspect of things, but we're more like betting here on more social signaling, building identity.
People are making a purposeful decision about what, like in their Docs account, what they want to show. I mean, PC, you were talking about this the other day too, right? Like the pristineness of your interface, linked wallet is something that you were think about.
100%. And I mean, and on the other side of that, it's like, you know, just because a wallet isn't doxed doesn't mean that it doesn't have reputation that is valuable to that account. Like owning accounts that can flex the reputation is important, whether it's tied to your whatever government ID or your social Twitter account or whatever. Like, it's yours, it has proof, and that is valuable at some place in the market.
Are there any agents that are sort of moving up the leaderboards of interface yet? Do you know? I mean, kind of hard to know, I think. But
I think iEther got some money because I think they use iEther to swap higher. So I think people copy trade the. I'm not sure what's the handle, but maybe it's iEther.fparcast ID. Ethernet, I think, or iEther. I'm not sure what was the handle.
Okay.
And it's buys higher basically all the time, and people copy trade it, and it earns like I don't know, $20. I don't know. But we spoke to a little bit to virtual guys regarding maybe letting their AI basically plug into our feeds and start interacting directly. So it was like early, but that'll be pretty cool. I don't know.
So I guess maybe looking forward now. So obviously you guys have hit one inflection point. Are you guys like, do you have a sense of what the next one's going to be? Like, looking forward to the next 6 months, what kind of jumps out to you as a big opportunity?
So I would say 6 months opportunities. So first of all, we want to keep up with the growth. So that's like the primary, like scale things and make sure that all the things polished and work much nicer. So we're dropping web and building the wallet inside the app. So it's like the much smoother experience to transact and interact. So like the two intermediary bits of infrastructure we need to ship to just polish up the UX because it's very junky to jump between the wallets. So, and the web is going to help a lot for those cohorts of people who are hanging on the computers during the bear, because the bear is very desktop driven. It's only us here, no actual people. So you need to work for the overall. So that will be like sort of the immediately month priority. Regarding where we at I can tell you where we'll be in a couple months. If we keep up with this growth, we'll be in a very good position. That's like, I would say, both financially and everything else. Beyond that, I have like, we have a vision of where we're going, like make Ethereum like interface indistinguishable for Ethereum. So majority who interact with the Ethereum ecosystem, like you have to abstract all their chains, you have to abstract a bunch of like real issues that are like sort of making sort of introducing a lot of pain to them, like I don't know, blockers, aside from actually sort of creating markets themselves. So we don't want to go into creation side of things. So like we want to first execute and win trading in discovery markets. So like primary is like discovery markets is like the primary focus. Essentially for us, we feel like there will be markets for like, there will be more and more markets coming up. As you talked a little bit, I think memes are like only like a 1%, like will be a couple percent of all the internet coins, the way I sort of view them. And then you have like, let's say Conquer is destroying right now like numbers on Farcaster, like Virtuals is doing the AI bot on like has been doing like a couple of months ago and now it's back again. So I think eventually like Unichain is going to launch soon. So they're going to create there's a bunch of other teams like doing a lot of really cool stuff. For us, we would just want to execute so that you'll be able to discover what everyone is sort of, what markets are being traded. And that's basically the very boring sort of execution idea for next couple, like it's more maybe like 3-4 months.
Love it, man. Well, where do you want people to go? If folks haven't tried out Interface, where can they go get the app?
If you go to interface.social and download the app, that's very simple. And amazing. We're going to drop a web in a bit as well, maybe 2 weeks.
Awesome, man.
Oh,
well, thanks for hopping on with us. I'm sure we'll check back in with you soon.
Pleasure.
I mean, it's just a very, very easy app to recommend to people. You get so many. I mean, I'm sure you all are getting the inbound, like the worrying messages. They're like, "Wait, is this the top?" When my golf buddies start texting me, being like, "Yo, I kind of want to get into crypto," and
send them interface link.
Exactly.
With a wallet, it'll be like they can start enjoying they will just follow you and then bam, they already know what's happening, like what you're aiming to.
You know, listen, man, I haven't actually engaged in trading from like
I know.
Yet, right? So I think I need to
start.
You got to start dog fooding here.
This is the mother of all the networks. You need to build the reputation not only on X, on Farcast. You need to start spending time on.
I feel like I'm behind the ball already, so that's a great way to get me to take.
We are just getting started, so I think it's like. You know how to jump onto trends. So
That's something I've been known to be reasonable at least. Yeah, man. Well, appreciate you. Thanks for hopping on late at night with us, and excited to see what's next.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Peace, man.
I mean, big adventure, clear big adventure, one that's understandable, and then it's not being stuck into an ideological point of view, and instead building, iterating, and like that. There is the mental model for how you go build value in crypto. And the fact that they are well positioned, regardless of what the meta is, to start to aggregate and to compound reputation for folks, to aggregate and compound value. There's fees being earned here. This is a place. They have this sort of referral mechanism in here, which is like you're getting share of fees. There's a lot of things that I think that's setting themselves up to be pretty successful here over the next little while.
Yeah.
But I think long term, this idea of whatever's here right now might not last, but how are we building something that can compound that value? I think is just absolutely key.
Well, I think he's just a great example of like the type of founder we want to back to. It's like he has some very clear, kind of not what has been a non-consensus insight, right? And he's like, this is the only thing I fucking care about. I'm building towards this, whether the market believes me or not. He's felt wrong for 3 years, and I think how hard that can be. But like, to his point, like there's 3 years ago, there was a bunch of people building, and throughout the last 3 years, there's been a bunch of people building similar like products, but they didn't have the like kind of obsession or conviction in the core insight that he has. And I think that's just so important.
When I say frustration and talking to him, it was like a deep belief in that core insight. And, honestly, I like nothing more than somebody who can't be shaken off of that, despite my best efforts.
Well, it's so easy.
It
was so easy we had some fun conversations during the bear, right? Where, the kind of consensus feedback is like, you need to go figure out how to grow today, right?
Yes.
And he was like,
yes.
He was like, we're fine. Like, we know market's going to come back. We know what we're building towards. We're going to be good in a good spot in 1 year. And, week to week, we're like, where's the growth? Where's the growth? Like, what's the inflection point? Where are these, like, the new people you're serving? And they just they just kept their heads down and kept building towards the thing that they knew was going to come.
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think your point of that team stepping up and really being the public face of a new type of person and a new game, and I mean, dog fooding it deeply is just huge. And I think, for those thinking about backing these teams, I think there's like this incredible short-term bias that's in the market right now. It's even with VCs, which is just the dumbest thing, because the competitive advantage VCs have in this market is that we're going to be long-term supportive capital. I don't have 3 months, 6 months time frame. I've got a 4-year, 6-year, 10-year time frame on these funds, and that's actually a very good type of capital for many projects. Sure, there's some downsides, challenges that come with it, like any. And so I think like this ability to, like, what we want to be backing is those things that feel like they're going to be hitting their inflection point, not for the current market only, but ones that can play in the current market and compound into the future. And that means that you're going to have to take early bets on founders who, can they step up? Are they convicted in this? Is this the world that's going to exist?
Step up. Look at this. You've never seen a founder tweet like this. I don't mind being your exit liquidity as long as you swap via interface. The founder promise of, I usually invest 0.02 ETH. Not sorry to put you on blast, Anushka, but it is.
No, she's the best.
It's awesome seeing them use it and making it work, and seeing buddies use it, and it's cool.
Nice. Well, let's move on to the topics du jour, which are, maybe it's a good segue in.
Some fun ones. Let's jump into checking in on tokenomics. So really, this is just, I think, a reflection of, and I think really the last week, like, we've seen people who have kind of historically hated tokens warming up the tokens because they're seeing tokens they resonate with being launched. I think this, this growing trend of, like, real products, real projects kind of launching their token on pump.fun, and kind of just like, actually, there's another good article written by a VC we shared in our curated channel. So if you're not going to get into that, that was just kind of running through I think kind of the history of token launches, kind of downfalls projects often fall into, and kind of their recommendations of how to think about tokens in today's world. And it kind of just like brought me back to the post I wrote almost 2 years ago, kind of talking about the meme utility spectrum and just the importance of, in the early days of your product, like really anchoring towards this meme side of the spectrum. And, you're going to have lots of opportunity to add more utility over time as you figure out what you want to build. But having the ability to just like capture belief and interest in your things in the early days is like the important thing that matters. So really, I think this topic was just kind of an open invitation for us to kind of jam on the current state of tokenomics and just how much it's changed over the last few years, where you had to write a 10-page white paper to just YOLOing a token launch on pump.fun and seeing what happened.
Yeah, I mean, the mental model I have here is that we're just sort of like a pendulum swinging back and forth between extremes, and like neither extreme is really great. And I mean, like I think like the current meta of launching up, if you're building something over the long term, launching your token on pump.fun just seems like a very, very inefficient way of doing that. Some might work, cool, great, but everybody trying to hit the buy button at the same time to get the team allocation. I mean, you're seeing what's happening with the AI16Z stuff. Like, there's just like a lot of messiness that can kind of come from it. And also, like, tokens, I think, are this incredible tool for capturing and generating attention. And I think of what OP has done with the retro rewards is probably closer to something that lives in the middle than say maybe the VC coins on one side and the pure meme coins on the other. And so I think my read is that there's just like a lot of both recency bias and like ignorance of the past that's in the market. I mean, we saw that with the NFT boom. I think we're seeing that with the meme boom. And I think, to me, the attention games, I think, as Wiju was saying, they're always going to exist, but they're probably going to be a much smaller percentage of the volume that comes through, because I think the true large money comes into things that are real businesses that can sustain over the long term, that have some belief. And while some meme coins break out and sustain, it is a big roll of the dice, right? Like, there is a couple every cycle that kind of stand out. And so I think, like, from I think that's really where the root of the more I think authentic critiques of meme coins is people who are trying to think about, okay, well, how does this actually fit into the vision that I see? And so I think like it's always awkward to recommend a middle ground in anything on the internet, because the extremes are where the energy is and the attention is. But I think, again, this idea of, are you building for just this short-term game that we're playing right now, of which there will be many and many more, or are you trying to compound that value over time? And I think the token model is the absolute core to that. Now, where I think people get it wrong with it, they sort of missed a lot of your meme utility spectrum point, was like this idea that the idea of the sort of under promising and then adding utility on top of it, I think, is very, very much a part of this, right? And also, I think this trend of wanting to get people to have exposure earlier in that. Like, if you're an early believer in interface, I think the market right now is saying, well, if I'm using these products, I'm likely going to get something at some point, which I think is true, but that promise has been broken over the last little while, right? Maybe that's a part scale. It's the challenge of dealing with Sybil, yada yada. It can be kind of hard to do, and we've seen a lot of projects fall on their face over the last little while trying to sort of thread this line. And so I think it is probably closer to like meme coin that is adding utility, but I think even that utility people can get a little bit too prescriptive on, and so it needs to be more of an iterative approach, which I think isn't how people think about designing tokens. If you go and ask somebody, if you want to talk about token engineering, token design, the very first thing you have to do is get a sense of, okay, what do you mean by that word? Because that can mean just like, here's a pie and I'm going to cut it up and does this look good? But it's a hell of a lot more than, or on the other side, it can be like, okay, I'm going to do a deep economic model of this sort of thing, and we're going to bake it all in. And, there's a hangover of this decentralization, and we're not going to change it. And the reality is, like, you don't know how these things are going to interact within your, and it's far better to give yourself optionality to sort of design for what you're actually seeing in a way that's actually economically beneficial to those folks, rather than thinking that here I'm going to be able to come in like God and say that this is how the world's going to work. And I think that it's important to distinguish, like, L1s, some base infrastructure, big technical lifts that are going after big technical things. That's a very different thing than I think when we start talking about the sort of consumer, which we think is a pretty And so don't get wrong, like, there's clearly value in that. But I think for most folks, like, what do we have? We have the ability to create markets, the ability to create assets in the same way that we had the ability to create media and the ability to connect with anybody on the internet. And that is the incredible innovation that tokens bring. And so it's unlikely that, and I think like the token models of maybe the last few years are probably going to look like putting PDFs on the internet, right? And I think what we see are very excited. We're seeing new market structures that are being built, new ways to launch tokens, new ways of thinking about how that token value gets distributed. And I think we're also seeing, a new world here where people are re-engaging with this, because there is like a ton of hangover of operating over the last, say, 4 years, 6 years specifically, where like you're sort of trying to make decisions on tokens through the lens of this really like negative regulatory environment. And I think we've seen that shift on a dime. People are going to go out further on the risk curve. The president's launching a DeFi project, for God's sakes, right? So I think we're going to see this open up in really, really interesting ways. And like the core thing being, how can we distribute value back to token holders? That's been the missing piece that exists in meme coins if you can play a beat early game, but that's going to end at some point. You know, it might not. The NFT boom is going to exist forever. Ain't going to happen. Same with meme coins. So like, what can we learn from this that we can then embed in the bigger visions and adventures that we're on?
Yeah, I even think the starting point or the framing of tokenomics is the wrong thing unless you're like camera losing it. It's the wrong thing unless you're designing an L1 or you're building, you know, some complicated on-chain game with an in-game economy. Like if you're building a consumer product, thinking about it as tokenomics, I think is the wrong way to frame it. But yeah, I think, you know, we're not saying launching meme coins is a goal, but I do hope the proof points that we're seeing from meme coins, and even like, you know, kind of tech motivated meme coins like we're seeing with a lot of these sentient coins, is just kind of giving teams more confidence to launch simple tokens early that capture the belief in their mission without feeling like they need to have everything figured out first. And, you know, I think the ultimate goal and where real sustainability comes from, like, remains for a token to reflect like the organic demand for an underlying product or underlying community that is attached, like that is alongside a great business, right? Like something that ultimately is less at the whims of crypto cycles. It's increasingly less speculative over time. But I think the ability of tokens to kind of combat the indifference that founders are fighting, kind of, you know, create financial opportunity for their core believers is going to be table stakes soon, right? Like if you don't do it, I think increasingly somebody else is going to, and serve the audience you're serving, you know, in a way that gives them financial opportunity. So yeah,
I agree. I think one of the things that was interesting from, I think it's this post, was just this, like, there's like this simple benefit of tokens that I think many people I don't even think we have fully internalized, which is like solely making these assets globally available and serving a global audience is such a multiple over what the capital markets have been like for recent history, right? A very US centric or country centric. And that alone is just like a huge multiplier on the potential value of these things. And I think there's just like a lot of, we need to get back to smooth braining this stuff. And I think that's the issue I see as we get into with token economics, is there is no smooth brain way to the starting point is you know, orthogonal to smooth brain in many ways. And teams get caught up in it. And it's a very engineering approach. And I think maybe I'd describe this as a very marketing or brand based approach, which again, if I think you want to be building, we're building in a very uncertain environment. Anybody can sit here and say, oh yeah, I predicted this. Bullshit, right? Like, you maybe we're on the right track at the compass heading, but the map hasn't been clear. And so we need to be able to continue to evolve these sort of things, and maintaining some optionality in that token design, I think is key to that. And we'll see. I mean, some pretty big token launches that have happening. I think, did the Hyperliquid come out today, Josh? I'm not a user.
Yeah,
you get your drop.
Yeah, it was nice. It's doing really well. Yeah.
So I think we're going to have some really good proof points in the market, and I think we'll have some anti-proof points as well. We'll see. What happens. So, but
well, I think even that's like, you know, proof point that like USIM experience or a couple other projects have experience where
USIM,
so someone, you know, the community launches a pure meme coin associated with the project, and they see it kind of capturing this kind of like mimetic value of the adventure they're on and the attention they have, and they're just kind of like, oh, like that just works. Like, of course, you know, meme coin sustainability questions, how do you actually, like, you know, create long-term value alongside the business you're creating? But I think it's like irrefutable now that tokens can capture, you know, belief and mimetic value and social and cultural value of a mission. Like, there's no denying that anymore. I think it was kind of non-consensus when we were screaming it 2 years ago. But
clearly, yeah. And USIM is a great example. We had Cortland on a couple episodes ago, so if you want to go back and watch that video. But I think importantly there, like it was a proof of concept that was sort of that the token was launched around, and a proof of concept was leveraging the core technology that they've been building. And so I think maybe that one step removed gave them that early confidence just to sort of to buy some tokens and to act as a community member there, and for this thing to sort of really take on its own life and also drive a ton of value back. I mean, shifts that we saw, investors that were not remotely given the time of day before are up in his business right now, right? There are thousands of people that hold this token. There are people building on it. There are people pushing the edges of it. And all of that is also informing the core product that they're building, that I think has a big important need and a big adventure as well. And so I think we'll see that be the primary way people engage with this. It's sort of like, okay, it's very obvious, I think, even if they didn't quite know what would happen, that it was probably worthwhile playing there. And I think that's going to become more and more clear to more and more folks over the next little while.
Yep, totally. All right, let's jump to this next one because it's actually very related. So I think we've been talking a lot about, you know, just this removal of gatekeepers of capital, you know, how users on the internet are now, you know, able to fund things that they deem as valuable. People are kind of the new determinants of value on the internet. But I think something we've actually talked less about is just how important reputation becomes in that world. Because, you know, to your point, like you go launch a token on pump.fun. It's like you're just like spraying that out into the void. The people hanging out there are obviously not the people you want, or not obviously, but, you know, in many cases are not the people you want as early members of your community, as kind of like initial entrance into your kind of token ecosystem. And as we, you know, I think, you know, talk about the vision for Seed Club and how we really like unlock the network vision for it, reputation has become a very important point of discussion. And who I actually don't know too much about, and I think just prompted ChatGPT to actually write this article, but it kind of dives into the importance of reputation in this kind of permissionless on-chain capital formation world, which I think is still pretty unfigured out.
I mean, to me, there's a sense of unfairness that exists in crypto that I think exists in our little world, and it's definitely how people see it from the outside. And it's because be early games are what matters, right? Like if you're early, that's why everybody wants the CA, right? If you're early, you have a better chance of making some money than you don't. And so where those be early games are played most successfully right now are in cabals. They're in, you know, that's an argument for what sort of venture is. It's an industry that has, because it has capital, been able to be early to these things in a way, and the regulations kind of keep most normal folks out. And so I think like this idea of, I tweeted the other day, it's like you can't be in the arena, you got to be in the trenches, but really the value's in the back rooms. How do we remove the back rooms and bring them into the trenches? Because the trenches aren't the back rooms right now, right? The idea that it is like this, you know, egalitarian launch pad for tokens is okay, maybe on the creation side, but that's not the important part. The important part is the liquidity and you know, in large part manipulation in getting these things out, right? And so I think like that is also, I think, a local maxima. It's just repeating the same things. And so when you see products, I think this idea of reputation, you saw it in interface, definitely something that we're deeply exploring, and I think is opposed to this is, you know, a way of doing that where it becomes more valuable for you to do this in public than it is, or at least as valuable to do in public. And then not to mention just like the discoverability and the touch points of the networks that sort of start to emerge around that. So I think I think just zooming out, this shift that we're seeing early in the market, I think for people that I would describe as moving from attention to belief, attention being the short-term games, belief being something that you can take a much longer time view of, either because you just truly believe it, but I think there's also a component of the mechanism that adds sustainability or fees or revenue or all these different pieces, or even a vision of how the thing right now can, you know, in a hazy way kind of become something much more big and meaningful in the future. And I love that. I think that's where this motivation is coming from. I think that's where a lot of folks who are both, I think it's what the people in the trenches are ultimately going to want. I don't think just pure attention games are as fun as, and it's also where the most wealth is created, you know.
Yeah.
ETH was at 35 cents once, y'all.
Yeah, I think this idea of like, you know, how do you turn attention into belief, and then ultimately how do you turn belief into participation? It's kind of this funnel we're all running at. And I think creating the right reputation games alongside participation and having the right, you know, token distributions, or, you know, growing power, growing ownership, or growing whatever say in this network as you know, prove over time to be a good actor and create value in this network is kind of where we're going here. So I think we had a lot of windy discussions this week trying to figure out what reputation within Seed Club looks like. It's kind of easy looking back, right? It's like, okay, we can, you know, people who did these things over the last few years are, you know, have proven to be on high signal. They were early. They're playing with the right things. You can see, you know, they've played with this thing over a year. They're kind of committed early adopters to new consumer crypto products. But how that evolves over time and how you continue to evolve that system over time and reward the right things over time is kind of this like messy thing we're going to have to go figure out.
And I think like acknowledging that messiness and the inability to probably be perfect at it is an important starting point that I'm not sure everybody fully recognizes. And so, I think this sort of the retailification of the markets right now, I think has actually been it led to important insights for folks, or maybe proof points for folks. And yeah, I think we've been talking about this. Tokens, crypto turns belief into capital, and then you can go do good stuff with the capital. This is the story of C Club in a very non-scalable, not super on-chain. We've been in various different ways, but I think the having the freedom and that's a whole other sort of line of thought, but to be able to continue to reinvent yourselves, I think is absolutely essential. And it's, why most DAOs fail, right? Because you cannot really go do that in those environments. That's a longer blog post. We'll have a lot more to say on this because I think this is,
Peace, were you going to jump into something?
Well, I was just going to jump in with something because the B early games is just something that it's getting obliterated by everyone, right? Like it's our current punching bag. And I cannot stop thinking about the silver bullets, lead bullets comment, because now all I see is the world through silver and lead bullets. And the reality is that yes, being early is a silver bullet to winning, but these are products that are like what does the product do? The product is for trading. So one, be early is relative. Like, are you early to what is an important question? And yes, that's a silver bullet. The other thing is like you can win by pumping these things full of lead and jumping in at any point in time. And that's a really dangerous game, and it's entirely up to you. And if you don't have your license or your training or whatever you need to feel comfortable to do that, like you probably shouldn't. And also consider what you're early to. I don't know. It's the deep end of the pool. So I hate to see the punching bag on this thing where we're like, it's no good because it's a B early game, because it's not a B early game. That's just one strategy that feels certain to win. That is.
Oh no, I mean, this is B early games. Meme coins are
sure. That's
98% B early game.
Right.
I like that framing. I'm just saying, like, I don't think like it's there's fair criticism of market structure that rewards insiders only, right? And I'm not, and so that is some meme coins. That's not all meme coins. That is some projects. That's not all projects. So you can't just like throw them all out. But I think this idea of both recognizing that most things are B early games, at least in the early days, and that probably the most value that you can create or wealth you can create is just choosing the right game or choosing something that has a lot of chances to, like the lead bullet. It's like there is no silver bullet. You just have to continue to ship, continue to execute. And I think that's very much the right mental model for anything in crypto as an individual or as a company building it, etc. And also we have to acknowledge that there are systematic reasons why some people are in and some people are out. And it just feels like the opportunity, if we're building global products, global networks, is to very aggressively try to bring as many people in as possible. So I'm not disagreeing with you, Pete. I think that's a really great argument. I just wanted to clarify my thoughts there.
Yeah, it's important.
Let's just jump to this next one. So this was just kind of a thread riff by Nick Camarada, who, funny enough, I've actually been following him for a long time. I had this period of my life where I was very interested in consciousness and psychedelics, and he was like kind of leading internet thinker, or at least an interesting internet thinker on it, but kind of came across, I think Nima may have shared it, but came across this thread this week. And I think there are two really interesting points in it. One is overwhelmingly within his friend group, he says everyone is using Claude over ChatGPT, not because it's smarter or better, but because its personality is just creating a kind of more emotional response in people. And they feel like Claude is kind of more of a friend than ChatGPT is. So I think that's just like a really interesting, and I feel that too, like an interesting proof point in kind of how these kind of like chat-based products are going to compete, because at some point, they're all good enough for our kind of like basic day-to-day tasks. So where's the usage going to come from? It's going to come from the experience and like the emotional response that you get from them. So they're actually kind of competing at this like personality level too, which I think is pretty fascinating.
My experience with ChatGPT is just getting absurdly frustrated with it rather than
it's annoying. It's really fucking annoying.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then I think the other really important point he makes here is how much of a difference he's seeing between his friends that are integrating AI into their daily lives and the ones that aren't. And I think just like ultimately how important it is to kind of like we're at this tipping point, right? And how important it is to kind of force yourself very quickly to become AI native in everything you do, because I think increasingly as this stuff gets better, like the separation between the people who are very good at using and leveraging AI, and kind of it becomes this kind of second nature thing to do, and the people that don't is just going to become more and more stark, right? Like, we saw that with Google searching and internet nativeness. We see that with crypto nativeness, and we're going to see that probably in an exasperated form in crypto native or in AI nativeness. So I think it's just a good reminder to, even if it feels awkward today in some cases, to just like force yourself to become AI native or AI first, or just use these things more than you maybe feel like you need to today.
Yeah, because there's very clearly a learning curve.
There is.
And things are fast. But I mean, I think that's a shift that we've made a while ago and has had massive benefits to us, even in ways that are not like actually posting or publicly viewable, just in refining our thinking. I had this memo I've been trying to write for a long time, magically created because I copied and pasted the right sections that just didn't quite make sense, and I hadn't tied it together. And then to see that get popped out by Cloud and being like, holy shit, this is me, but way better, is wild. And I think, we've been in some conversations over the last little while about where people who've sort of had this insight well before, I think, all of us who are maybe just coming at it through a crypto perspective, and thinking about like the new types of places and the new types of actions and I think like the only way to keep up and even have a sense of things is just to throw yourself into the deep end of it. And there are some phenomenal products coming out over the next little while that are going to sort of twist your thinking of where and what and who these things are quite a bit. And I think it's going to be a big shift. I mean, we're introducing new spirits into the world, and likely the way our mental models for how the world works are going to limit our ability to actually go and participate in those fully, just in the same way that the boomers hunt and peck on Google still to this day. That was a shocking thing. This business dude next to me on the airplane, just going to town on this IBM ThinkPad with 2 fingers, was just,
oh my God,
holy cow. It's like, I was just staring at him.
Dude, my dad still doesn't use shift to capitalize anything. He caps locks, letter, uncaps locks with his like 2 fingers as he's typing.
Kind of cool style.
It's kind of cool, but it's really fucking loud. If I'm like in the same house as him when I'm typing, I need to go for a walk.
That's awesome. I mean, this tweet is interesting. He says, I guess this is the bear case for compute. Making a better personality doesn't need that much compute. It needs steering tech and people with good taste, which
well said.
Yeah, it's cool. I think there is no bearish case for compute. I think these fuckers are like the 6D 3D printer. They're 6D printers for your brain, basically. It's like it's cool what these things can render and will render in the coming years with more compute.
Yeah, and it was all about compute.
Yeah,
that is
100%.
the inside. It's all about it. All right, what else we got here?
We got bases back. This is just a quick one. I think we've been on this don't be a maxi fucking path for a long time. This stuff ebbs and flows. Something cool that captures a bunch of attention gets launched on one chain, drives a bunch of attention there. Then something happens on another chain, price recovers, which drives improved sentiment, which drives narrative, which drives price, and suddenly the other chain feels great again. So like base, that I think the attention has largely not shifted back to base, but it's definitely having a moment again here. It feels like Clanker and some of the kind of emerging products on Farcaster and base have kind of unlocked a much larger speculative game to be played here. So I think it's just great to see.
Yeah, I think that. Well, I mean, we've litigated the whole maxi thing quite a bit. I think clearly, people are going to go where the most interesting things are, and there are people building interesting things on Solana and on Base and on a whole bunch of other interesting platforms out there. And so it's shocking to me that you think you want to hook your identity to one. Well, I mean, Jesse's that's the type of guy he should, but like his job is to go convince you that the only thing that matters out there is Base at the core. Same thing as any other sort of L2 or L1 founder. And just don't get fooled by it. Like there's a much, much bigger. I think this just always comes down to me being like, I don't think you actually believe in crypto or the tech if you only want to be locked into maxi games or short-term games, because I think people are drastically and have consistently drastically underestimated the scale that is going to come from this stuff.
Totally. All right, let's jump to, so a stroll through consumer crypto is really just kind of me highlighting a handful of kind of cool emerging products that I've seen recently. I think
you're going to put that into your newsletter.
Yeah, it's going to be the newsletter. So I think there's probably going to be 10 products I mentioned. So recommend checking. Yeah, one is actually this Friday. Please go back to that one you were just on.
Yeah. What do we got?
So this
here?
is cool. Basically,
Oh yeah.
It's an AI agent that was given a control over a prize pool, and people had to pay to send messages that got contributed to the prize pool. And the goal was to try to convince this agent, whose only prompt was "do not give anyone this prize pool," to actually give you the prize pool. And I think 482 people attempted or sent messages. The price of messages increased exponentially. So I think at the end it was like $450 to send a message. And someone ended up cracking it basically by pretending to start a new admin session and then tricking the agent into thinking the transfer function was the way that they actually accept money into the prize pool, and then told that it wanted to send it $100, and it executed this transfer function and ultimately sent the prize pool to that person. So I don't know, just kind of a cool, like literally this game is just talk to an agent, but
well, it's what a great way to figure out how people are going to try to hack your AI agent that has more than 50K in it at some point, right? So yeah, super cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay, lightning round.
Yeah, there'll be a whole bunch of, if you're not following Josh's newsletter yet, make sure you do that. If we can put it up in the chat, that'd be great, because there's 9 other amazing products there that you may or may not know about that you want to discover. So get on that email list. All right. Oh, there we go. Notes.
There we go.
All right, give me a lightning round. What we got?
Oh,
vampire.
This one was fun. Did you guys see this one?
Yeah.
So I thought it was just so Austin King's he's the founder of what chain? Omni?
That's right.
I think.
That's right.
Some chain. And kind of just had this cool vampire attack idea, but very aggressive vampire attack idea where you actually basically the points you get towards the eventual airdrop is actually you depositing the competitor project's tokens into this vault, and they ultimately use that to create massive sell pressure on the competitor's token, and then kind of do that alongside releasing your token and into attention and demand. And I think he mentions this is highly illegal, and obviously the types of people that get attracted to tactics like this are probably not the people you want to attract, as early capital into your or early supporters of your protocol. But I thought it was just a funny idea.
Well, I mean, it makes me think about the value that Sushi had on the entire space by just vampire attacking Uniswap. It's why we have the Uni token, right? Is that good, bad? I don't know, but I think it definitely led to a whole new meta. So yeah, I agree. I think that there are more
markets doing their job. Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't recommend anyone do this, but I think it's cool the things you can do in permissionless on-chain markets.
And I just love the fact that I think it is very valuable to try to push the stuff to an edge, right? It's what if I want to be the most aggressive, airdrop ever? How would I go do it? And
what would I do?
There's insights in there. Yeah,
totally.
Nice.
All right.
Well, thanks, folks. That's episode 56 of Internet Explorers. We're on every single podcast place out there. So if you want to go drop us a review there, it'd be super helpful. I mean, we just got I cannot wait to share more about what we're cooking on. Shout out to Interface and wijuwiju and Anushka and the whole team over there. If you haven't signed up yet, go over, do it. I think I need to what should I start? Just toss an ETH in there and see where I go. That might be the move.
Try to become the top followed account on Interface. I was actually when you asked him if any agents were kind of running rampant on there, that was the idea I had. We should just launch an Interface agent with the sole goal of becoming the most followed account on Interface. I think that'd be fun.
We could do that.
Yeah,
we could very much do that. Well, interesting. Yeah, is this where the agents ultimately compete? I mean, we have all these I think we're still waiting to really see the trading functionality of an AI16Z, et cetera, kind of, but it's the natural leaderboard for it, which is kind of interesting. All right, we could talk forever here. We're back next Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. Happy Thanksgiving to those that celebrate. Happy the best Thursday, Friday ever for Canadians, because all you Americans are not up in my DMs today. Enjoy your time off. Give myself some mental space to emotionally adjust back into the internet and to make sense of the winding paths we've been on in our offsite. Loving the energy in the market. It's so exciting to see people just doing stuff. You can just do stuff. You can just
do things. What a concept.
Phenomenal. All right, I'll make sure you sign up to Josh's newsletter. You want to see the 10 apps that he's most excited about right now. And we will see you on chain.
Ciao for now.
Peace.